Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast daily for Tuesday, right? Tuesday, Berm. I'm losing the days of the week. Tuesday, April 11th. I'm Bill Landis. That's Jeremy Birmingham. You folks are getting a whole lot of Berman Bill this week. Austin Ward is feeling under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back with us soon. But until then, you are stuck with the two of us on a Tuesday morning here as Ohio State is in the final week of spring football practice. They were on the field on Wednesday or on Monday. They'll be on the field again on Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday for the spring game in Ohio Stadium. I had mentioned to Berm earlier on Monday, the day we're recording this, an idea that I had.
No. We are recording this for sure on Tuesday morning, bright and early Tuesday.
Pull back the curtain. An idea that I had, but I'm going to change that idea and see how Berm responds to this. I want to play a little buy or sell with you, Berm.
I also like adapting on the fly. So I appreciate your willingness to just shuffle the deck and let me see if I can stand on my own 2 feet.
All right. So I have, let's see here. I have six topics, not necessarily related to spring football, but if they're not totally related to spring, they're certainly starting now in the spring. I want to see if you are buying or selling on these general ideas as it pertains to the Ohio State football Buckeyes. How do you feel about that?
I am buying the Ohio State football Buckeyes.
There you go. All right. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
And so I understand the game. Right. I think it sounds fun, and I like fun things. Like
okay, here we go.
Fun dip. Remember how good Fun Dip was? Those little
I love cherry Fun Dip, man.
Those little crack sticks they would make you eat.
Yeah, I love having the crack sticks when I was a kid. Yeah,
those were delicious.
All right, are you ready for the first one?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Ohio State's starting right tackle is currently on the roster.
I like how we go.
And you can head
straight to the muck. No, I mean, I think it is. I think the starting right tackle is still on the roster. My biggest issue is not with the fact that I believe Ohio State will at least explore the transfer portal to see if there's a tackle out there somewhere that can help the depth. The problem is I just don't know what type of quality you're going to get in the transfer portal at this point, because we're heading not just into the second transfer portal window after the big one after the season, but it's going to be April, and it's already April. It's going to be May and June. I mean, June's right around the corner. I just don't know that a lot of guys around the country are going to be willing to put themselves in a position where they enter the great unknown of the transfer portal with, this sort of late window. And even if they do, it's hard to show up on campus at the end of May, beginning of June, and be the starting right tackle at a place like Ohio State. So that said, I think it's clear Ohio State would like to explore that option, but I still am going to buy the fact that week 1 against Indiana, that starting right tackle is currently on the roster. And I hope those guys are ready for it. That's all I'm saying. Tiger Shabola and Zen Mahalski are going to be given every opportunity to be the mans at that spot.
The men's. Yeah, I think I think I would also buy, only because it just feels like a hard proposition to bank on there being somebody worth taking in the portal. And two, it's the time of year where I think maybe typically graduate transfers will kind of pop up, but I feel like even those guys know ahead of time that they're going to be graduating at the end of the spring, so they enter the portal in January as opposed to waiting until, I guess it opens on April 15th, the day of the spring game. So we'll see, but I just think it's really difficult to put yourself in a position where you're hoping that someone who's Ohio State caliber is available. So I think it's more likely that one of these two guys is a starter.
You know what I was wondering as we were in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center last Friday watching practice? Right now, Luke Montgomery is running as Ohio State really doesn't have a depth chart right now, but it seems like Luke Montgomery's in a position where it's Mahalski and Shabola are rotating, and then Luke goes in after. You wonder if there's at least a shot or a fraction of a possibility that if neither one of those guys continue to take the push forward, that Luke Montgomery somehow surprises everyone and emerges from that spot throughout this, the next training session in the summer. So it's not something I'm counting on or expecting, but I wouldn't rule it out based on the fact that what we've seen in the limited opportunities we've had with Shabola and Mahalski, that I don't think they've looked significantly better than Luke. Now, that being the case, those guys are going up against generally the starting defensive ends for Ohio State, and Luke is not. So I think it's one of those opportunities for this weekend in the spring game. Maybe you mix them up a little bit and see who can stand up against who.
Yeah, Luke is a guy I'm really excited to watch on Saturday. I said this to Austin the other day when we were in there. I turned to him, like it was during pass rush, and I turned to him and I said, I know that Luke Montgomery does not win every rep that he's in, but I think he wins every one when I'm watching. When I happen to like turn over and pay attention to him, he's done something that I thought to myself, like, oh, that's better than I thought it would be at this point. So it's not to put undue pressure on the kid. Starting as a true freshman is incredibly difficult. But it is a name we don't talk about, and it's probably at least worth keeping in the back of our mind as there's still 4 months until they have to find a starter.
Because honestly, if you look at him, he looks like a college offensive lineman now, and that is not the case even 5 months ago. He is up to at least 300 pounds, and he looks taller. I don't know, I mean, if he's gotten taller or not, but I think that he looks much more college ready than I would have anticipated him being as a true freshman based on what I saw out of him in high school.
All right, buy or sell. Josh Proctor will carry what appears to be his current positioning as a starting safety through to the fall.
I hate this question because there's so can we just call Austin on and have him handle this one?
We know what he's doing.
Okay. I'm going to go David Duchovny here and tell you, I want to believe. I just don't. And I hope I'm wrong, because if you can have a 60-year guy out there with the freakish athleticism of Josh Proctor that really can be the tip of the spear in the secondary, I'm all for it. And I think that would make Ohio State a better football team. But there's not been enough evidence over the previous 5 years to suggest that Josh is the guy to run that spot. Some of that is because he's been injured. Some of that is because COVID. Some of that, I mean, there's been a litany of things that have gone wrong to put him not in that position. Every word we hear from the coaching staff about Josh Proctor is extremely positive, and that's not always the case. Hasn't always been the case. So I think it's fair to at least preface it by saying there is at least some momentum for that to happen. I'm still going to sell it just based on the fact that, I know past results don't indicate future, outcomes, but that seems like where things have gone. And I don't know how you keep Sonny Styles off the field for very long. And however it's going to work out, I think the guy that is most likely to be replaced by Proctor, or to be replaced by Proctor in the lineup, is Sonny Styles. And depending on who Ohio State's playing, I guess, but it's just, there's so many safeties, and I don't know. I'm going to sell it, but I'm willing to acknowledge that everything I hear from the staff and other players on the team right now would indicate that I'm going to be wrong. But again, it's just history.
Yeah, I don't dismiss any of what we're hearing, and I also feel like I want to sell it too, but it's not like it's not a strong sell, because I do feel like Josh has not had like every opportunity to grasp a starting role. He's had some opportunity, but it's not like they just keep giving him a shot over and over again and he keeps dropping the ball. Like, he broke his leg in 2021. And then even last year to me was weird, because there were guys who throughout the year made mistakes but weren't pulled off the field or seemed to get second chances after they did make those mistakes. And like Josh Proctor missed a tackle on the first play against Notre Dame and was like, see you later. So I don't know why that was the case. And granted, like, they have more information than we do. We're just watching kind of the one outcome of that one particular snapshot against Notre Dame. But I don't totally dismiss the idea that something could click for him, but he has been at it quite a long time here, and it just hasn't, for myriad reasons, as you said, it just hasn't clicked. And in the meantime, you get like infatuated with a guy like Sonny Styles, and to a lesser extent, even Kai Stokes. Like, I don't quite put Kai up on that pedestal, but I think he's close. And in my mind, like, I came into the spring thinking this, and I think that the best sort of like iteration of the deep safety tandem for Ohio State is Lathan Ransom and Sonny Styles, in whichever way you want to configure it. And then you like sort of figure out nickel separately. So, I also sell it. I think Austin, as you said, would probably buy it.
He wouldn't want to, though. And that's the thing. He wants to be logical about it. But that said, like, I also think that the best version of Ohio State could be a completely bought in, completely game changing Josh Proctor. So if he's back there and that's a guy who had every opportunity to go play somewhere else or to just, take a shot at the NFL and hope you can freak people out at the combine with how athletic you are. So I don't want to say or sit here and act like he can't play. I mean, the guy obviously is good enough to make an impact and he has the trust of his coaches. So I think if the question is he going to continue to compete and be in the mix for a starting job by the time the season starts, I think he will be. But is it, are we talking Indiana game or are we talking Michigan game? Like, what's the best case scenario for the team? And I guess that's something we'll continue to parcel.
Yeah, it could.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Parsnip. Next one. Parsnips. Ohio State's leading rusher has been available all along this spring.
Ooh.
And to refresh memories, the two running backs that have been available all spring are Dallin Hayden and Chip Trainum.
I'm going to sell it. And this is very simple why I'm going to sell it. I believe a healthy, confident Travion Henderson is as good as any running back in the country. And I don't know that anyone's really seen that yet at Ohio State. As a freshman, we saw glimpses of it. We did not see any of it a year ago for, I don't know exactly all the reasons, but he was never really himself. Austin has talked ad nauseum about the way that Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins struggled in 2018 and how both of those guys were trying to do a little bit too much. And we could see with J.K. that he tried more often to just hit a home run when he needed to just be willing to take a double. And I think Travion Henderson has had the opportunity to step back and watch what he did a year ago. He's healthy. He seems extremely confident again. And if that's the case, he will be Ohio State's leading rusher.
I think that's mostly where I am. The one thing that worries me with Travion Henderson is like he's saying all the right things, and it does feel to me like perhaps his perspective was altered in a good way through unfortunate circumstances when he got hurt. Like I think maybe he just like learned about protecting himself and finding ways to be the best version of him. But when they finally let him out on the field and he's been itching so strongly to get back out there, when they finally put him out on the field, if he reverts back to some of those worst
is he going to try too hard again? That's the question.
Yeah, that worries me slightly. But honestly, even if he does, and so long as he's healthy, I think if he's healthy, he's just like agile and elusive enough to kind of make up for that if he does put himself in bad spots. So I also think he's going to be their leading rusher, but I really like what I've seen out of Dallin and Chip this spring. And like the way that Tony Alford talked about them too, it was like Dallin's got really good vision, like maybe the best vision in the room. And Chip is probably the fastest guy in the room. And he's got some of the power of Mayan Williams. It's like, well, okay. Like, I guess it goes back to the thing we've talked about all along that like they have 4 guys, maybe 5 that could probably start anywhere. And they all can't get the ball as much as they want to. And no matter who gets it, I think it'll be pretty good. It's just a matter of who rises to the top.
Is it a bad thing if Ohio State has 4 running backs that have 600 yards? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's ideal.
I think that's on the table too. Ideal. Yeah. And I think that could happen. But even with that, I think I'm with you. I would sell on the idea that it's Dallin or Chip that leads the way. I think Travion still ends up leading the way there, but it could be really close. It could be damn near equal kind of share of the workload. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I agree.
Brian Hartline will call the plays in the fall. Buy or sell?
Buy. I buy it. I just wonder if that transaction changes midway through the season. That, which I guess we won't know until we see how the first month of the year goes. But when Ed Warner and Tim Beck were the offensive coordinators at Ohio State, Urban Meyer let them call plays. But then if he didn't like the play, he just changed it to JT Barrett power, QB power, QB power, QB power. So it's certainly going to start with Brian Hartline as the offensive play caller. And he's going to have to prove, I think, that he's earned that he gets it and that the offense looks the way they want. I mean, Ohio State's offense is a marvel to watch when it's working, when it's, rolling the way that Ryan Day wants it to roll. I think it's interesting for Brian Hartline that he has to go into his first year with so much pressure on the plate of Ryan Day, but also with a brand new quarterback and all. So there's a lot of things that don't make it ideal in this like introduction to play calling, but it's still Ohio State. You're still going to have a better roster than 99% of the teams you play against. And you're going to have to figure out ways to make it work. But I think it will be Brian Hartline's show.
What is Ryan Day's version of JT left, JT right? Is it just throw the ball to Marv?
It should be.
Well, that's probably Brian Hartline's version of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the version would be some little leak out of the tight end over the middle. I don't know. I mean, it's just something where it's a little like the pop pass doesn't exist anymore. The slant, the bubble screen. I mean, the bubble screen was sort of last year's bubble screen experience was definitely similar to the to JT Power, but who knows? The reality is Ohio State tried a number of things a year ago that didn't seem to work. And whether or not that was Ryan Day being stubborn, whether or not that was him not having a feel for the game because he was so worried with everything else, we saw the fully armed and operational Ohio State offense against Georgia for the first 2.5 quarters. And you can get a real sense of what it can be if all the coaches and players are feeling aggressive. Yeah. Dangerous. If they're feeling dangerous.
Feeling dangerous. Sorry, Dice Man. I am dangerous. I watched Top Gun Maverick over the weekend. Very good. Very good film.
I have not seen it. I have not, but I've also never seen the original Top Gun. So
what? Wow.
Not a big Tom Cruise guy.
Oh, well, I can buy that. I understand that. But you should still watch Top Gun, though.
Plus, as an 8-year-old, I was just furious about the blatant propaganda being perpetrated on the American people by Top Gun.
If that made you angry, you should.
I was like,
check this one out.
I was very concerned that they were using Hollywood to, promote a military industrial complex in a way that I felt like was not really, I think that sort of made it look a little bit too great. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plus, everyone's real sweaty in that movie.
Yeah,
I don't like the sweat.
And doing it, volleyball. I mean, come on. I've seen the clips. But I'm just not a big Tom Cruise guy. The best Tom Cruise movie I've ever seen is Tropic Thunder. So, I mean, what does that tell you?
Great film, that Tropic Thunder.
One of America's finest.
Yeah. I am also buying the Brian Hartline calling the plays, more so than I thought I would coming into spring. And maybe that's because Ryan Day has not worn a headset in spring practice, and I'm assuming he won't wear one during the spring game, but I guess we'll see what that looks like come fall. But I'm buying it more and more.
Yeah, and Brian Hartline's going to be confident. Like, if one thing for sure, he is not going to go into this opportunity like as a wallflower or some tame little duck. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to go into it feathers a flapping and make sure people know that it's his ball game. It's his barbecue.
I would like for you to please go through every member of the Ohio State coaching staff and assign them a bird that they are like.
I need to get a little bit more, stronger, knowledge of the birds. I need to be a better. Are they ornithology? I need to be a better
ornithologist or something.
I need to be a better ornithologist orator to get to that point.
Okay, we'll do that later in the week. Two more.
That's Friday's show, folks. Spoiler alert.
Two more. I didn't know how to couch this. It's mostly like, do you buy the Jelani Thurman hype? But I couched it as Jelani Thurman will finish second among the Ohio State tight ends in receptions. Buy or sell? Assuming Kate Stover's first.
Oh, boy. I think I'd buy it. Yeah. I really do. And I'm not sure why. I could be easily talked out of that. I could easily talk myself out of it. But I do think, much in the vein of the conversation we had with Austin on the show a week ago, like, I think when you have a player like that who maybe is a little bit different than other guys you got on the team, you find ways to implement them. And Ryan Day is going to do that in this offense. The Buckeyes understand the assignment. When you have a young guy from out of state, they're going to find ways to try to bring them into the mix. Tight end is not a position where you have game changers really outside of potentially Stover when he's healthy. That even being the case, Jelani Thurman is a more natural tight end than Cade Stover. And he's huge, man. Like, he's a big kid. And I think the reality is, how many receptions did Stover have a year ago?
24, I think. Can't remember off the top of my head. It was the most since Ricky Dudley, I think.
So, what does the number 2 tight end on the roster have to reel in? A dozen passes?
I mean, free to be the second one, I guess, depending on how things go. But
I would say that I would not be surprised if he ends up in double figures of catches this season, based just on what we've seen, the way that they want to deploy him, the opportunity to use him in the red zone in a number of ways. I think that he's big enough to be out there in the red zone package, and agile enough and athletic enough to go out and get the jump ball and do other things. So I'm buying it. I am aboard the Jelani Thurman train, and I know that sounds insane because he plays tight end at Ohio State, and they never throw to the tight end. But I think the goal, if Ryan Day's offense is running the way Ryan Day and wants it to run, the tight end is integral into what they do. And I don't think you would be seeing as much of him this spring as we've seen in some cases ahead of Sam Hart, ahead of Bennett Christian, if they didn't realize that he had a unique skill set that they needed to take advantage of.
Yeah, Cade had 36 receptions last year, so
which is a good year. He had, he was on pace to break touchdown records and stuff like that. So if Jelani gets 10 catches, it may be good enough for second on the team in tight ends, right? So
yeah, for sure. I think the one thing that maybe he might have to fight Jelani Thurman is, like, he's had a really good spring and he seems to be progressing in the right way, and you hear all the right things about him. If it doesn't come to him immediately, can he stay with it early in the season so that it might come to him later in the year? I think that's key for every young guy, but especially a guy like him.
No, I completely agree. I also don't mean to discount G. Scott or Joe Roy or anyone else. I just think that G's role is going to be different. G is probably the guy that would be battling Jelani for that number 2 spot, I think, more than even Joe would, because that's just the way it probably goes this year for Joe, because Joe's going to be more the natural fit to be opposite Stover on the field, and I don't think he'll be out there a lot without Cade. So,
yeah. All right, last one. Austin and I were having a conversation about the defensive backs in the winter sometime. I think maybe when we did the cornerback position preview heading in the spring. And I said something to the effect of Ohio State needs to shelve the BIA thing for the moment because they haven't been BIA in 3 years. But, and this is maybe talking about cornerback specifically, it seems like they're having a really good spring. Part of
Penn State still calls itself LBU.
Yeah, that's it. Well, at least they have Micah Parsons, I guess. I don't know, but they should probably stop doing that too. The corners seem to be having a good spring, probably a byproduct of young quarterbacks, receivers being out, but nonetheless are playing well. Are you buying or selling the upward trajectory of that position group to the point where it gets back closer to what we've come to expect from the Ohio State cornerbacks?
I was extremely optimistic about the cornerback room a year ago, and thought that we would see a major jump last year, but then the injury bugs bit everyone, and the depth issue became something that was difficult to overcome. And I know people don't like when I say it or argue it, but I didn't think the corners played that poorly last year. Now, that said, they also didn't get tested a lot. So when they did get tested and you saw deep shots like Michigan State, Jalen Reed against Cam Brown and stuff, Jalen Reed's number one, a very good receiver. I think sometimes that gets forgotten, but the big breakdowns in the passing game in the latter couple games of the year were almost exclusively against the safeties, not the corners. So I don't feel like they played particularly poor, but they also weren't making game-changing plays, and I think that's what people expect from the Ohio State cornerback position. Not a single interception a year ago from a cornerback is somewhat shocking, but the addition of Davison Igbinosun is a huge boon for Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock as far as just pushing them and making sure that there's not a chance they get complacent. I love what we've seen out of Jair Brown in practices. I just think he's got a different sort of competitive streak to him. I like what we've seen out of Jermaine Matthews and Ryan Turner on the field as well. If everyone's healthy and you add in Kelvin Simpson-Hunt, who may be the most physically gifted of the group beside Igbinosun, I think that there's a real reason to be optimistic for that corner group. So I would buy them provided they stay healthy. You're going to have 7 guys in the room. You're going to have guys much more experienced, healthy, and talented. And so in a defense that might rely on them a little bit more this year, because you hope you get a little bit more pressure up front and you get some of those, balls that are just those jump ball type situations. I'm buying them for sure.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, right. I think that's the thing, but I'm buying it too. I don't know. There's like good vibes coming out of that room, and I try not to ignore that. And I likewise would like to see some more ball production from them, like interceptions, PBUs, takeaways, those kind of things. But I don't know. They just seem like they're building a lot of confidence now, and even if it is because they're not going against Marvin Harrison, Emeka Ibuka, and Julian Fleming every day, and like CJ Stroud's not out there dotting guys up, I still think that building that confidence now can matter come the fall. Because let's face it, like how many quarterbacks are they going to face on their schedule who are better than Devin Brown and Kyle McCord? Not many, right? And better receivers.
And the Ohio State backup wide receivers are going to be better than most of the receivers that play. So I do think, it's just important to be confident. Last week when we were in the Woody Hayes on Friday, after Cam Martinez had that pick 6, after practice, I jokingly asked him if Marvin should be allowed to practice, because one time that Cam seemed to get really beaten on Friday was again by Marvin Harrison. And he's like, yeah, I want him to practice. It's how I'm going to get better. It's how everyone's getting better. So you can see that these guys understand that even if they're not perfect, that they're not getting down on themselves and they're not beating themselves up if you get beat by the best receiver in college football, taller, faster, stronger Jerry Rice. You know what I mean? That's okay. That's okay to get beat by other teams have good players. And so the biggest thing for cornerbacks is the short memory and making sure that you're on the field. And if Ohio State's corners can't stay healthy, then that's a bigger problem. But they're going to have to make sure they're on the field. And if they are, again, I Igbenogson, Hancock, Burke, and then you add in Jair Brown or Jermaine Matthews or Calvin Simpson-Hunn and Ryan Turner. That's a pretty good group.
That wasn't so bad, was it? Six quick by ourselves.
Quick 6-pack.
Your facial expression when I put you on the spot with right tackle to the start was quite entertaining. But I think that's just such
that position right now is just such a quagmire that you just both of those guys in Michalski and Shabola have a lot of upside and a lot of things that they are going to do well, but counter to what's happening with the corners, where they're getting beaten by really good players sometimes in practice and they're not letting it bother them and they're not letting it get into their heads. I think you see Shabola and Michalski getting abused by JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer or Kenyatta Jackson and instantly going into their heads. And that cannot happen. These guys very likely will be starting at Ohio State this fall. So you better get confident and understand that you are one part of a line that is going to need to make or break the Ohio State football season. So no pressure.
No pressure. They will very much be in the spotlight in the spring game on Saturday. Probably get a lot of questions about that position with Ryan Day on Wednesday. Still a lot to come here in the final week of spring ball. We'll have podcast dailies every day leading up to the game. Might be some recruiting stuff that pops up throughout the week. If it does, Berm will have you covered here and at ohiostate.rivals.com. You can join us there with a 30-day free trial. DTE30 is the code. 30 days on Berm, because he's that nice of a guy. Make sure you take advantage of that. Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Daily. That is Berm. I am Bill. We'll talk to you later.